Issued by the Indian Army that it has confirmed that 3 during the day and 17 later, that 20 Indian soldiers in all have lost their lives in the standoff that took place at the line of actual control in the Galwan Valley, where that happened on the night of 15th and the 16th of June 2020. Now, the army that issued a statement saying that Indian and Chinese troops for now have disengaged at the Galwan area, where they earlier had clashed on the night of the 15th and the 16th of June 2020. The concerns are rising over when it comes to the United States and the UN too, citing that they want India and China also to go on peacefully to amicably resolve the issue. We have Zeenat with us. We also will be having our guest joining us here on the broadcast, and several more updates also coming up. Zeenat, looking at the situation, especially in the Galwan Valley, it has a terrain which is very hard to decipher when it comes to the temperatures over there. The army in a statement that had mentioned that many of those who were critically injured in the line of duty and the location were exposed to the sub-zero temperatures in the high altitude terrain.
See, Amita, we need to understand, because this is the eastern Ladakh where the temperature is sub-zero as always. In fact, in summers also, it's more like winters when you travel to Ladakh region and all. Definitely the tension between the two countries is escalating after the India suffered casualty of 20 army men, and the Chinese government is yet to reveal its numbers. But yes, there had to be some kind of midway in order to de-escalate the tension, although we have been seeing the several rounds of talks for the last 2 months, whether it was diplomatic level talks, whether it was military level talks, and that is why on the 6th of June we saw certain agreements between government of India as well as China, but they were still, the Chinese government were violating those agreements that was signed on 6th of June, and that is the reason that when this brawl took place and the Indian had to suffer casualty. And right now, in order to de-escalate the situation, you have to take a very different steps, and you have to see that such situations does not repeat in future. We are seeing the way the Prime Minister Modi's office is monitoring the situation, whether we talk about the Defense Minister, we talk about the External Affairs Minister, the Army, the way they are looking into it, they are dealing with their counterparts through their channels. And all this is happening at a time when the world is already having a huge pandemic crisis of COVID-19. You see, it has come all the way from China, as has been alleged by a US president, and calling it a Chinese virus, and how the China is getting the pressures for the COVID-19 crisis across the globe. But as pointed by every expert, that China is doing this to India not only because of one reason, but because of the multiple reasons. But in order to de-escalate the situation, both the countries have to take some major situation so that such killings do not repeat in future. Although India has received casualties, some 20 men, the army men who lost their lives because there had been a huge scuffle. The stones, or we talk about the iron rods, were used. But at the same time, it's a known fact that casualty is 20 of number, and in fact there are the reports coming from the foreign media as well, where it's being stated that the China has suffered casualties between 30, 45, although the numbers are not clear, and Chinese government still have not revealed how the troops they have, what kind of casualty or the injury their troops have faced. But China is completely tightly lipped and they are completely mum. But yes, there has been, although the MEA yesterday evening made a statement that they were trying to change the status quo. So this means that there are the serious issues that are taking place between the two countries in eastern Ladakh. How the day will pan out, will there be increase in the casualty or the injury number, or will China reveal their numbers? That needs to be seen today.
We have also Shravan joining us here on the broadcast. Let me also bring him on board. Shravan, how does it affect the talks taking place? We have seen several rounds of talks in the military levels that have been taking place to that effect, that China reached the consensus that the commander level talks that they reached to one on the 6th of June. However, looking at the current scenario, what impact do we see?
Amita, before I answer your question, there are certain details that we have essentially picked up in the last couple of hours with regards to what really transpired on the intervening night of 15th and 16th, beyond the statement that has already been issued by the Indian Army late last night. So I would just like to put this into perspective, what really has happened with regards to the clashes that took place. Now, with regards to the Lieutenant General level talks that actually took place since 6th of June, there were certain agreements that both sides had come to a conclusion that they would essentially retreat, the Chinese army would essentially retreat. Now, right from 5th of May, China has had one big issue. That has been the DSDBO road. Now, that becomes the 255 kilometer long road. Remember, that it's of strategic importance we are given to understand as far as this entire issue is concerned. China essentially had a problem with this entire road infrastructure to begin with. Then they were basically building up a temporary Arctic tent is what we are being told. That tent actually gave them, which is near patrol point number 14, which gave them a clear view of the 255 kilometer DSDBO road. Now this is something that India essentially objected. In fact, yesterday on the 15th, we were given to understand that the commanding officer of the 16th Bihar Regiment, along with his men, went to the Chinese and told them to go back, because that's what was part of the disengagement plan. That is something that was not adhered to, and thereafter this entire scuffle, the physical scuffle that actually broke out, the commanding officer was attacked brutally by the Chinese PLA troop. In fact, they had used iron rods, and not just that, there were several other batons that were embedded with metal studs that were essentially used to carry out this brutal blow. And thereafter, this was a free-for-all brawl that actually took place. Now, there was a reinforcement that was essentially called in by the Chinese PLA troop. As far as India is concerned, we're given to understand a major rank officer and several other of his boys thereafter came, and this physical brawl took place. Remember, all of this was actually happening on the slippery ridge line, and that's when, which basically flows along the Galwan river. A lot of our soldiers had also, they fell down when this entire physical scuffle actually broke out, and that's the reason why perhaps it took a lot of time for Indian Army to also retrieve the bodies, is what we are given to understand. 16 rounds of army choppers did from the forward base, from the forward area to the base camp, is what we are being told. So that's the reason why perhaps there was some amount of a delay in that statement that came in from the Indian Army. As far as Chinese casualties are concerned, I'm told that 43 plus the number could certainly go up. That's what I'm picking up from my sources.